Hello guys, another 327 video. GGG announced the new Bloodline Ascendancy. I reviewed all of them. 3 of them is interesting and could possibly useful for chains of command. So let's talk about them. By the way, GGG also mentioned that you can swap those Bloodline Ascendancy by talking with an NPC. So perhaps we can change to different Bloodline Ascendancy in different situations. So it's just like Pantheon. Okay, so let's start. The first one is Lineless Bloodline. Many people say it is useless because to sacrifice the build and the amulet is too hurt, especially the amulet. Because if you sacrifice the amulet to get 1 additional ring slot, you have to remember you also sacrifice your anoint. So that's not worth it. However, in a special situation for us, like in the Pinnacle Post fight, because I assume maybe in a mid-budget or we just enter the high budget, we may not have the mage blood. So when we are doing the Pinnacle boss fight, actually I think the utility flask is not that useful. So perhaps we can swap to this Ascendancy and get 1 additional ring slot by sacrifice our utility flask. Then for this ring slot, we can slot in maybe a Screaming Terror, so it will create 2 wounds every 2 seconds. Or maybe we can put Hateful Accuser here to get a penance mark to sustain the wounds. So I think it could possibly be useful in some of the Pinnacle boss fight. Yes, Maven, I'm talking about you. And also the invitation. One of the weaknesses for our build is we have to ramping up before we can start the Pinnacle boss fight. I know that's really annoying for most of the people. So perhaps maybe additional ring slot can help us. And next is Lycia. I think the only useful Ascendancy for Lycia is this bitter heresy. The rest, they are not for the minion build. And this bitter heresy, this is super powerful, and it provides every ability we want. So it will create profane ground instead of consecrated ground, which is easy. You can just use a sulfur flask to trigger this. It increases our minion 100% increased critical strike chance, and the enemy, they will also deal 10% less damage to us and 10% more damage taken. Our minion can also get a 30% of physical damage as extra chaos damage. That is just literally a 30% more damage. So in overall, I think Bitter Heresy give our minion maybe up to 50% more damage by just drink a sulfur flask. So it's definitely a usable Ascendancy in our mid-budget Paradoxica Chaos version. But the next question is, which Ascendancy we can give up? I think the only choice is the Commander of Darkness to give up, because the Unholy Might, yeah, we are Chaos version, so we cannot give up this. And Bone Barrier, that's the main reason we choose Necromancer. But if we give up Commander of Darkness, increased damage and attack chance is irrelevant. But the main problem is we have to find our character and minion more resistance. So we probably need maybe 2 bone ring to cap our minion resistance. And for the player, we may have better resistance gear. Or maybe we have to use flask to cap our resist. So it's up to you. This will make us to spend more effort when crafting our gear. But I think for the damage wise, it's still worth it. Okay, so last is Catarina. The whole Ascendancy is for the minion. But this Umbrella Army is not for us. I think this is only useful for the Race Spectre build. And the Death Offering, I don't see any build can utilize this, because even the 50% increase effect of Offering is good, but it will kill your enemy when Offering Pyre. So we definitely cannot use this. This is almost unusable. Then is the prolonged servitude. I'm so happy when I see this. Minion cannot be killed but die 6 seconds after being reduced to 1 life. This is literally give 6 seconds additional uptime for any of our minion. And this is very useful in endgame. In some situations, like if we are farming in the endgame content, then you may find that those endgame content boss or T17 mapping mod, they can kill our empty weapon. Our Guardian, the life, because our Guardian have more defense gear, so the life is still healthy. But those AoE damage from those boss, they can kill our empty weapon. That is really annoying, and if all of your weapon is killed, then you are in a big trouble. And now we no longer have this problem, because this prevent servitude is basically make all of our weapon become treadmill. So they gain an undying range for 6 seconds. They can kill those bosses before they leave us. That basically solves our minion survivability problem, and should be very useful in the very juicy endgame mapping. And I also have some ideas to further utilize the prolonged servitude, because we are using the Asian school to get the extra damage. But the downside for this helmet is we have to deal with the whisper effect, which will deal 20% of the max life as cast damage to our minion. So we used to take all of those minion life and regen in our passive tree. But now with this ascendancy, what if we remove some of those minion defense nodes? Then we can save maybe 10 or 15 points, and then we can use those points to open maybe additional big cluster for more damage, or maybe we can invest to our character defense. 15 points can make us way much tankier. And if we do so, the next question will be, how do we sustain our weapon during mapping? Because in our endgame version, we already have minion life, minion cluster, and we will take the Blast Rebirth and Life from Death. Blast Rebirth give our minion created recently cannot be damaged. So with this, we can at least have 10 second minion uptime. 4 seconds from Blast Rebirth, it will be full life and be immutable. Then it will slowly take damage from Whisper effect to enter low life. And it can also utilize this additional damage. Then it will be immutable by prolonged servitude, and also utilize the additional 15% damage. So in average, I assume we can still have about 15 seconds for our weapon uptime. That is really a good buff for those tough endgame content. Then the next question will be, can our enemy guardians still survive after remove all those minion defense nodes? The answer is yes, I verified in standard. But it will require some change. The first change is the support gen. I personally will give up the Awaken elemental damage. It was used for us to give our AG to have reflection immute, because I'm lazy to roll the map to roll out that reflection. Then we should switch it to the mid-shell to get extra damage reduction for our Guardian. And in our endgame version, we already have this Mask of Stitchy Demon. It is literally give our AG very high life regeneration. I remember that is about 30 to 40% life regeneration per second. Because our AG with the bone barrier, we have so much high ES. And the higher ES we have, it will give a lot of life regen to our AG. And also our AG use this body armor to get the nearby enemy cannot deal critical strike. So we are also immune to critical strike. I do some experiment. I use my AG to funding T17 and also doing the Simulacrum. I surprisingly found that that is totally fine. My AG can always sustain in a very healthy life. Okay, so that's all the ascendancy I interest. I definitely will use this Catarina prolonged servitude for my endgame setup, because when you enter the endgame, you are always facing those tough situations like Simulacrum or T17 map. So I think that's really worth it. And for the ascendancy to give out, personally, I will definitely to give out the Plunge Bringer, because the rest of 3 they are more important. Okay, about the rest to ascendancy. Those Bloodline Ascendancy are very flexible, so I think you can decide whether to use them or not. Because the original Necromancer Ascendancy is still good, it is not necessary to use those Bloodline Ascendancy. By current information, I think in some specific situation, they are quite helpful indeed. So the next section will be a showcase that I verify the concept to remove all the minion life node in standard, and to see if it's still working, and the answer is yes. So just for the reference. Hope you enjoyed the content for today, and see you next time.